I thought I might start off by just telling the story of how I started at Burnet about 10 years ago. I'd spoken to Margaret on the phone about, and I'd just finished my honours at the Alfred Hospital, and she asked me to come in for a job interview. And so I came in for my job interview, and basically she just started introducing me to everyone as the person who was about to start working here. So I guess the interview went pretty well. And I was only supposed to be working there for a few months and then going off to do my PhD in microbiology. But considering that I'm still here now, I think that ship may have sailed. I think it's just an example for people who know Margaret of how she often has plans for you that you don't really know about beforehand. So I'm going to be talking about some of my work in young people's health and social media. So I guess the first thing that you might be wondering is, why is social media so important for health? Well, I guess my answer is that it's really just important for everything, because as someone who is in Generation Y I know that social media really is a major part of everyone's life now, especially young people. For example, we've now got more mobile phones than people in Australia. We have almost everyone owns a smartphone, and a huge number of people using apps, and almost everyone is on Facebook and other social media as well. And these media provide a lot of opportunities for health promotion, but they also provide risks for health and well-being. And I'm going to just give a few examples of how my work is looking at the use of social media in health promotion and for risks in health. So this field of work started during my PhD in 2006, when my awesome pink Nokia was like the height of technology, because it had a colour screen, which was really cool. And so we sent text messages to young people we'd recruited from a music festival. They were just a couple of examples up there. They were supposed to be funny and catchy and rhyming, short little messages that provided some information about sexual health, particularly about chlamydia infection. And what we found through this trial was that just this really simple intervention was actually effective in improving both knowledge of young people and also in improving their STI testing behaviour. So that was really exciting. And one of the great advantages about this simple intervention is that SMS is really useful now in developing countries as well, mostly because mobile phones really have penetrated almost the whole population, even in the poorest countries. And really recently, I've been working with Stanley Luchters from CIH. We've just got an NHMRC project grant to deliver a SMS health promotion intervention to sex workers in Kenya. So the aim of this project is to send text messages about contraception and about sexual and reproductive health services to vulnerable women in Kenya. And our hope is that it's going to reduce the really high rates of unplanned pregnancy that these women face. Back in Australia, we're working on ways of using the sort of improved mobile technology to sort of make our interventions a bit more sophisticated. So with Cassandra Wright, who's one of my PhD students, we're working on a trial using mobile phones, particularly smartphones, for alcohol. This intervention works by young people go out, say on a Saturday night, to a pub, and every hour they're going to receive a message that says it's time to fill out your survey. So these young people then complete a really brief survey on their smartphone. It's only a few questions, such as, how many drinks have you had in the last hour? And then they'll get a tailored message back. So for the example there, you've already had 8 drinks tonight, but you said you only wanted 6. Grab a water next round or you'll blow your holiday savings. So the way these work, because they are tailored to a really specific individual, and we know, for example, how many drinks they wanted and how much they've had, and we know that they are saving for a holiday and that they were worried about spending. So the messages, we think, will be much more effective than just sort of a generic don't drink message. And Cass has run a small trial of this, and we've actually found that young people don't really mind answering these surveys on their phones, even when they're out at a pub, because in their own words, we're on our phones anyway, so it doesn't matter. I've also been doing a bit of work looking at smartphone apps. So apps are functions that you can download onto your smartphone. There's quite a few around about sexual health. I've got a student at the University of Melbourne who's conducting a systematic review of them at the moment. Some of them are sort of fun game sort of things. Some use location tracking so that you can find your nearest sexual health service. And there are others that are basically just like encyclopedias of sexual health put onto an app. But some work we've done looking at alcohol apps has shown that not all of these apps are really that reliable. So, for example, in this app, we reviewed about 200 alcohol-related apps that we found, and a lot of them were claiming that they could calculate your blood alcohol concentration. So in this one, for example, you put in your gender and your weight, how many drinks you've had over what time, and it tells you that it estimates your BAC as being about 0.02, so you know you're safe to drive. But what we found was that when we put real data into these and measured people's blood alcohol concentration, they were completely off, and a lot of them seemed to be just generating random numbers. So you can kind of imagine that there are some unsafe implications from that if people are trusting them to drive. And most concerning were some that claimed that they literally were breathalyzers. So if you blow on your phone, it could, or maybe like scan your fingerprint or scan your eyeball, it would tell you if it was safe for you to drive. We've also done some work using Facebook for health promotion. So the FaceSpace project was done here. That there was two arms, one targeting young people in Australia and one targeting gay men. The idea was that it was kind of an edutainment sort of thing. So it was sold as entertainment. So there was movies and videos and like funny status updates, but there was sort of health promotion messages snuck into it. And the Being Brendo series was actually really successful and was taken over by the Victorian AIDS Council. But there are a lot of other people trying to promote things on social media, and one thing I'm looking at the moment is alcohol advertising on social media. And what I've found is that there really are a lot of alcohol companies that are sort of getting around the guidelines of advertising, so targeting young people, which they're not supposed to do, basically making alcohol look like it's really fun and good for you, which is they're not supposed to do, but using social media, there's kind of ways of getting around it. So another area of risk that I've been looking at to do with new media is pornography. So we did a survey this year of 1,001 15 to 29-year-olds. We were aiming for 1,000, but one extra person snuck in, obviously. And we found that pretty much everyone, all men and almost all women, had viewed pornography, and that 81% of men and about 1 in 5 women watch pornography weekly or more. In some cases, it was several times a day. And the median age that people reported first seeing pornography was 14 years. And for half of them, this was before they had any sexual experience. And by sexual experience there, I'm including things like kissing someone. And I think what the real issue here is that it's not that I'm concerned that, you know, all pornography is evil and it will erode young people's morals. It's more, I think the concern really is for young people who are seeing a lot of pornography when they've had absolutely no real-life sexual experience. It can actually alter their perceptions of what sex is like. And we know that people have started to use pornography as sort of a sexual education tool because sex ed in schools is very biological and not that exciting, and it doesn't quite tell young people what they want to know about sex. So they're sort of turning to pornography, which gives a sort of skewed idea of what real sex is like. And we did find that watching pornography more often is correlated with real-life risk behaviours. Of particular concern was not using condoms for sex. Another thing I'm looking at is sexting. So sexting is sending, usually, say, naked photos via mobile phone. We found that about half of young people say they've ever sexted. And we sort of found that in contrast to what a lot of the health promotion campaigns are sort of suggesting, but young people actually consider sexting to be completely normal and a healthy part of relationship development. In most cases, they said that it is a completely good thing and nothing goes wrong. However, there were certain risks associated with occasionally sort of a sext being spread beyond the person it was intended for. And one thing that I'm really interested in is the gender double standards that exist around sexting. I've been looking at the use of Tinder and other dating or hookup apps because that's something that's got a lot of media coverage lately. So Tinder is an app where you can go into your mobile phone and find, say I want to meet men aged between 20 and 30, and you can see like how many men there are within 1 kilometre of you who would like to talk to you or whatever. And so what we found was that about 20% of young people say they'd used Tinder in the last year, and 5% had used some other dating app. And use of these apps, which was, I guess, unsurprisingly, associated with having recent casual partners, recent new partners, or more sexual partners. So that's something that I'd like to continue researching to expand a bit more. Finally, a couple of other issues that I'm looking at to do with new technology and mental health. So cyberbullying is bullying using new technologies. People are probably aware of that. But one thing I'm really interested in is looking at so as with the Tinder I was just talking about before, there is kind of a lot of gender-based violence sort of cyberbullying happening. So women who are using these dating apps do report getting some really horrible messages from men, for example. And the other thing up there on that slide called Fitspo, which maybe, does anyone know what Fitspo is? Anyone over 30 know what Fitspo is? So Fitspo is short for Fitspiration, which is a combination of fitness and inspiration. So it's kind of a social media trend. And this is some examples of some Fitspo. So anyone who's using Facebook probably sees things like this quite a bit. And if it's not things like this, it's things like your friends saying, I just ran 15 kilometres and now I'm eating this exciting salad. So it's kind of a double-edged sword in a way, because obviously it's a good thing to exercise and eat healthy and people should be encouraged for it. But sometimes it does sort of, especially these examples, kind of lean towards being more about body shaming and trying to meet some sort of aesthetic ideal of how you're supposed to look. And constantly seeing things like this can be quite off-putting to people, and a lot of research has shown that this sort of stuff actually discourages people from engaging in healthy behaviours and can really affect their mental health. So that's something that Elise Carrot, one of the research assistants, is leading at the moment. So in terms of all this bad stuff that can happen online, one thing we're working on now is just sort of a pilot trial of possible ways that we could address this. So something that Elise Vella and I are working on called Scope. It's a website, and the idea is that it's going to include real life stories from young people. So young people telling stories about things that have happened to them in this field of new technology and sexual behaviour or relationships. And I know that website, that screenshot doesn't look fantastic at the moment because it's still under development, but it'll probably be launching in the next week or so. So watch this space, I guess. So just to summarise, I guess, new technologies can be really great for sexual health promotion, but they also provide sort of new risks that we need to be aware of, especially as a lot of these things really are completely brand new and we don't really know how they're going to affect people, whether they will affect people at all, and if they do, what we can do about it. So what I'm hoping to do in, I guess, the rest of my career is work on improving ways that we develop and evaluate social media health promotion, get a really good understanding of how porn and sexting and other things influence young people's mental health and behaviour, work out how to address these issues, and I guess my overall aim to everything I do is to hope that all young people receive appropriate education and a really supportive environment. And I'd finally like to thank my two mentors, Paul and Margaret, and my research assistants and PhD students and honours students who I'm working with. And thank you, everyone.